Chapter 4. The battlefield is perfect to make new friends. The first thing Ryuji noticed was the noise. Not ordinary noise. This place was alive. Clang. Steel collided somewhere in the distance. Shk. A blade was drawn. Rumble. Something heavy struck the stone. Move! Our team registered first. You call that swordsmanship? Ha ha ha. Over here! Another airship's arriving. Above it all floated the Celestial Ring, an enormous arena suspended over the endless glowing waters of the Mirror Abyss. Massive stone platforms and bridges stretched through the sky as airships descended from the clouds, bringing competitors from distant kingdoms and clans. Hundreds of young warriors crowded the plaza beneath enormous banners snapping in the wind. Ryuji slowly turned, crimson eyes widening. This is insane. Fighters rushed past him in every direction. Then, a gigantic competitor casually lifted an enormous weapon, its weight cracking the stone beneath it. Too light. Thoom. Nearby fighters stared. How was he carrying that thing? Before Ryuji could process it, a girl in silver armor unleashed an impossibly fast barrage of spear strikes, each movement leaving silver streaks through the air. Again. She's terrifying. And then another cheer erupted. Ooh! Do it again! A calm teenage boy casually flicked his fingers toward a fountain. Crash! Blue energy instantly frozen solid. Too easy. Ryuji stared. The noise around him seemed to fade. Everywhere he looked were powerful warriors. Hundreds of them. His crimson eyes reflected their faces, weapons, and abilities. For the first time, Ryuji understood just how enormous the world truly was. There are this many strong people? Yet instead of fear, his heartbeat quickened. His fingers curled into fists. A grin slowly appeared. Ryuji stepped toward the edge of the plaza and looked up. The celestial ring towered above the Mirror Abyss, sunlight blazing behind it as the wind whipped through his hair and hollering. Whoosh. Ryuji's grin widened. Good. His eyes sharpened. And this is gonna be fun. Besides Ryuji, Taiga looked like a starving wolf dropped into a field full of prey. His green eyes darted across the massive tournament grounds, practically glowing brighter whenever he spotted another powerful fighter. Look at these people. Krrrk. Taiga cracked his knuckles. Man, I want to fight everyone. Ryuji immediately gave him an exhausted side-eye while adjusting his katana. You say that every 5 seconds, because they all look strong. Taiga suddenly pointed toward a massive armored warrior carrying an oversized hammer, especially that guy. The warrior glanced over. Huh? Taiga's attention instantly shifted. In her, a spear-wielding girl nearby unleashed a rapid series of strikes. Then Taiga spotted another fighter surrounded by crackling lightning. And definitely him. Ryuji slowly rubbed the bridge of his nose. 3 years ago, he would have already started 10 fights by now. Taiga proudly placed his hand on his hips. Hey, growth takes time. A nearby competitor nervously glanced at him. Why is he smiling like that? Ryuji stared at Taiga for a moment. Honestly, the fact that he had already challenged half the arena is progress. Sort of. Ryuji looked toward the towering celestial ring above the Mirror Abyss. Beside him, Taiga continued scanning the plaza like a hyperactive predator searching for his next target. The tournament hadn't even started yet, and somehow, the chaos was already beginning. Ryuji gave a small nod. Progress. He glanced at Taiga. Kind of. Taiga's head snapped toward him. I heard that. The two stood side by side beneath the towering arena, surrounded by hundreds of powerful competitors. The Celestial Ring was waiting, and soon, the tournament would begin.
Not every warrior gathered beneath the Celestial Ring carried the same energy. Some laughed together, exchanging encouragement before the battles ahead. Others walked through the plaza like royalty, already convinced victory belonged to them. One swordsman in expensive armor shoved 2 smaller competitors aside. Move! He rested a hand on his blade. I'm not wasting energy standing near extras. Taiga immediately turned toward him. Can I punch him before the tournament starts? No. Ryuji answered instantly. Taiga pointed toward the swordsman. What if he deserves it? You definitely can't. The arrogant swordsman finally noticed Taiga staring at him. Taiga smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. His green eyes narrowed with the unmistakable look of a predator who had just found something interesting. The swordsman stiffened. Then, very wisely, he turned away and walked off. Taiga watched him leave. He got scared. Good, Ryuji sighed. Eventually, they reached the registration line stretching beneath enormous rune-covered pillars. Officials in dawn-sworn robes hurried between desks as competitors continued flooding into the plaza. An older woman adjusted her glasses as Ryuji and Taiga stepped forward. Names: Ryuji Shizuka, Taiga Arakura. The official paused for half a second after hearing their names. Recognition flickered across her expression. Ryuki Kazuhara's students. Their reputation had apparently arrived before they had. She stamped their forms with glowing magical ink. You'll receive your combat marking shortly. She looked toward the towering arena. The crucible begins at sunset. Taiga's grin immediately widened. Finally, behind them, the celestial ring loomed against the setting sun as golden light washed over the enormous plaza. The tournament was getting closer, and Taiga could barely contain himself. As Ryuji and Taiga stepped away from registration, the flow of the crowd suddenly shifted around them. Someone lightly bumped Ryuji's shoulder. A stack of papers nearly slipped from delicate hands. Ah! Ryuji turned quickly. Sorry, Standing before him was a shy girl around their age, with long lavender pink hair braided over one shoulder. A white camellia rested near the braid, while her emerald eyes widened with embarrassment. An elegant bow rested across her back, with feathered arrows tucked neatly into her quiver. For a brief moment, flower petals drifted between them. No, I'm sorry. Her face immediately turned bright red. She hurried away, clutching her papers tightly as she disappeared into the crowd. Taiga stared after her, then slowly looked at Ryuji. You scared her. Ryuji blinked. I literally didn't even do anything. Taiga crossed his arms. You have an intimidating face sometimes. I do not. You absolutely do. Ryuji sighed. But despite himself, his eyes drifted back toward the crowd. The girl was already gone. The celestial ring continued roaring around them. Warriors shouting, weapons clashing, airships passing overhead. Yet for a moment the noise seemed strangely distant. Ryuji couldn't explain it. Among all the overwhelming power gathered here, her presence had somehow stood out. Not because she was intimidating, not because she was radiating immense strength, but because there was something almost strangely gentle about her. Taiga noticed where Ryuji was looking. You're staring. Ryuji immediately looked away. I'm not. Taiga gave him a knowing look. Another breeze swept through the plaza, carrying a few lavender petals into the endless crowd. And somewhere within that sea of warriors, the mysterious flower archer disappeared from sight.
The world seemed to pause beneath the celestial ring. One moment, the plaza was filled with shouting, laughter, and clashing weapons. The next, silence. Even the banners stopped moving. Hundreds of warriors looked upward. Glowing silhouettes emerged high above the arena, surrounded by radiant mist. A nervous competitor swallowed. What is that pressure? Another stared upward. They're here. Ryuji's crimson eyes narrowed. So those are the Luminarchs? 12 enormous silhouettes floated above the celestial ring, their forms hidden by golden light and deep shadows. Weapons, wings, crowns, chains, and strange energy patterns appeared through the haze. 12. The strongest guardians in the world. Suddenly, a blinding spotlight swept across the sky. A flashy man in white and gold appeared atop a floating platform, holding a glowing crystal microphone. Good evening, warriors. He raised the microphone dramatically. Welcome to the Radiant Crucible. Taiga's eyes practically sparkled. I like this guy already. Ryuji sighed. Of course you do. Above them, one Luminarch seemed completely uninterested. Ryuki Kazuhara casually leaned against the solar halo railing, silver white hair drifting in the breeze. One hand was in his pocket, the other held a bag of snacks. A competitor suddenly recognized him. Wait, that's Ryuki Kazuhara. Another whispered, the lazy dragon. Behind Ryuki, 11 enormous silhouettes stood within the golden haze. One was surrounded by floating blades. Another had enormous beast-like shoulders. Several remained almost completely hidden. A competitor trembled. I can't even look at them properly. The pressure alone is insane. Below, Ryuji and Taiga stood together. Ryuji rested a hand against his katana. Taiga grinned. Now this feels like a real battlefield. Ryuji looked upward. Yeah. The celestial ring suddenly blazed with brilliant light. Thousands of competitors stared toward the arena. Ryuki stood above them all, the 11 Luminarchs looming silently behind him. The announcer raised his microphone. Let the Radiant Crucible. The arena held its breath. Begin. The Radiant Crucible had begun. The commentator raised his crystal microphone dramatically. Now then, Massive holographic screens suddenly illuminated the celestial ring, displaying the arena's shifting mechanisms, rotating platforms, collapsing bridges, spinning pillars, shifting pathways, glowing barriers. A competitor stared upward. That arena is insane. Another looked horrified. We're fighting on that? The screen shifted. Far below the floating arena, the endless waters of the mirror abyss glowed faintly beneath the darkness. If you fall off the platform, the commentator pointed dramatically downward. You are eliminated. The crowd erupted nervously. The waters of the mirror abyss are enchanted with stasis magic. You won't die, he grinned, but you will lose. Huh? That's terrifying. Taiga casually cracked his neck. So basically don't fall. Ryuji stared at him. Very insightful. The holographic display suddenly filled with battles. Swords clashed. Martial artists exchanged blows. Elemental attacks exploded across the arena. Luminous energy erupted in brilliant flashes. Any combat style is allowed. The commentator spread his arms. Weapons, martial arts, elemental techniques, luminary arts. The crowd erupted with excitement. Yeah! Then, the screens went dark. The atmosphere immediately changed. A giant symbol of a luminary beast appeared across the displays, crossed out. Ryuji's crimson eyes narrowed. The dragon within him stirred faintly. Taiga clicked his tongue. TCH. The commentator's voice became serious. However, luminary beasts are strictly forbidden during the first phase. A murmur spread through the crowd. Then the commentator continued. No killing. Some competitors grinned. Others grew tense. Break bones? Sure. Not people unconscious? Absolutely. His expression hardened, but intentionally taking a life will result in immediate disqualification. Above them, the 11 hidden Luminarchs remained motionless on the solar halo. Ryuji stared upward seriously. Beside him, even Taiga's grin had faded. For the first time, the Radiant Crucible felt less like a tournament and more like a battlefield governed by a single unforgiving rule. You could fight as hard as you wanted, but you were not allowed to kill. Among the thousands of competitors below, whispers were already spreading. Is that really Ryuki Kazuhara? They say he barely even fights anymore. I heard he only won his title because the older generation retired. He doesn't even look dangerous. Ryuji stood among the crowd, listening silently. His crimson eyes narrowed. He glanced toward Ryuki. The silver-haired Luminarch was still sitting there, casually eating his snacks. Ryuji frowned. They really think he's weak? Beside him, Taiga scoffed. Ryuji slowly turned his head. Then, Ryuki yawned. A massive, exaggerated yawn that somehow carried through the surrounding noise. Ryuji's eyebrow twitched. Of course, even now, Ryuki looked completely incapable of taking anything seriously. Taiga suddenly raised both hands toward the elevated platform. Hey, old man! Ryuji immediately grabbed him by the shoulder. Don't. Taiga ignored him. Hey! Ryuki didn't react. Taiga pointed upward dramatically. He cannot hear you from here. Ryuji stared at him. Taiga turned toward him with absolute confidence. You don't know that. For a moment, the two simply stared at each other. Meanwhile, the surrounding competitors continued whispering. Guess those warriors attract weak students. Maybe their master really is overrated. Ryuji's expression darkened. He was about to say something when Ryuki suddenly stopped eating. The silver-haired Luminarch slowly raised his head. Oh, his eyes shifted toward the crowd. A faint smile appeared. Hey boys. Crunch. Ryuki took another bite of his snack. Taiga's face immediately lit up. He heard me! Ryuji froze. How? Ryuki simply lifted one hand and waved down toward them. Taiga grinned triumphantly. The surrounding competitors went silent. Ryuji slowly looked around at the people who had been mocking their sensei moments earlier. Their expressions had changed, because now they understood something. The distance between the solar halo and the battlefield was enormous. Thousands of warriors were shouting. Weapons were clashing. The arena was roaring. And somehow, Ryuki had heard Taiga perfectly. Ryuji looked back toward his sensei. Ryuki gave them another lazy wave. Taiga burst into laughter, and high above them, Ryuki simply continued eating his snacks as though nothing unusual had happened. For the competitors watching below, however, the first cracks had begun appearing in their assumptions. Maybe the so-called lazy dragon wasn't nearly as harmless as he looked. And perhaps the two boys standing beneath him weren't weak students after all.
The commentator's dark expression vanished instantly, like a switch had been flipped. He suddenly grinned again, raising his crystal microphone as golden lights erupted around him. Anyway, moving on. The holographic screen shifted, displaying radiant images of the 12 Luminarchs. You are not merely here to fight. He pointed toward the figures above. You are here to be judged. Competitors slowly looked toward the solar halo. The 12 Luminarchs will watch your every move. Every move? A competitor whispered. The screens displayed fragments of the mysterious guardians, blades, beasts, lightning, halos, burning wings, ancient staffs, and glowing eyes. Your strength, your courage, your heart. Across the plaza, competitors reacted differently. One tightened their grip around a sword. Another nervously wiped their brow. A third smiled with excitement. Someone else quietly prayed, "If I get chosen, my whole life changes." The commentator raised his voice. At the end of the Radiant Crucible, the crowd waited. The Luminarchs will choose warriors worthy of becoming their disciples. The plaza exploded. What? Nitrogen monoxide way. Above them, the glowing curtains surrounding the solar halo shimmered. Ryuki stood casually at the front, one hand in his pocket and tea in the other. He wore his usual relaxed smile, but his eyes were different, sharp, focused, watching everything. Ryuji stared upward. Sensei, Taiga glanced at Ryuki. He's seriously enjoying this. Ryuji couldn't disagree. Suddenly, the commentator threw both arms into the air. Now then, golden energy erupted across the celestial ring as enormous bridges shifted into place. The floating platforms began moving, transforming the arena into a vast battlefield. Thousands of competitors stared ahead with excitement and fear. Above them, the 12 Luminarchs remained silent, watching, judging. The commentator raised his microphone one final time. "Welcome," his voice thundered across the arena, "to the Radiant Crucible." The tournament had truly begun. The moment the final horn echoed across the heavens, the Radiant Crucible transformed into chaos. Thousands of competitors launched forward simultaneously. Weapons clashed. Fists flew. Elemental attacks exploded across the floating platforms. Move. Watch out! Some competitors immediately formed groups. Stick together. We survive longer in groups. No free hits. Others simply charged into the nearest opponent. The arena trembled beneath the sudden violence. High above, the commentator laughed excitedly. And they're off. Nitrogen monoxide hesitation today, folks. Within seconds, an unfortunate competitor was kicked directly in the chest near the arena's edge. Wait, what? He went flying toward the abyss. A golden stasis field immediately surrounded him as he fell. The commentator pointed dramatically downward. And we already have our first elimination. This isn't for air. More eliminations followed almost immediately. One fighter slipped from a rotating bridge. Another was overwhelmed by 3 opponents. A third froze in panic as attacks closed in. Too many. Get back. The Crucible showed no mercy. Yet amid the chaos, Ryuji and Taiga remained standing together. Ryuji calmly surveyed the battlefield. Taiga's grin only grew wider. Oh, Savannah. Ryuji glanced at him. You're way too excited right now. Around them, competitors continued battling across collapsing platforms. Far above, the 12 Luminarchs watched silently from the solar halo. They weren't cheering, they weren't reacting. They were simply observing, judging, and beneath their gaze, the Radiant Crucible had already begun separating the strongest from everyone else. Amid the chaos of the Radiant Crucible, Ryuji and Taiga stood back to back near the center platform while warriors clashed around them. Steel screamed. Platforms trembled. Competitors vanished in flashes of golden elimination light. And somehow, Taiga looked like he was having the greatest day of his life. Don't hold back just because they look weak. His fists cracked as his green eyes burned with excitement. I'm gonna go have fun. Ryuji glanced at him. You look way too happy right now. Taiga suddenly launched forward. The platform cracked beneath his feet as he shot into the battlefield like an unleashed predator. He just vanished. Within moments, Taiga was tearing through the battlefield. He leapt over attacks, weaved between fighters, knocked opponents into the air, and flipped effortlessly across rotating platforms. He's so fast. Ryuji was left standing alone. He rubbed his forehead. Please don't kill anyone. A massive explosion erupted somewhere behind him. My ribs. Ryuji didn't even turn around. He simply closed his eyes. I'll take that as a no. Far across the battlefield, Taiga stood triumphantly amid the chaos. Wild laughter echoing as terrified competitors scattered from him. Come back here. Why are you enjoying this so much? Ryuji sighed. The Radiant Crucible had barely begun, and Taiga had already turned it into a disaster zone. The arena no longer felt like a tournament. It felt like a storm given human form. Fighters sprinted, clashed, and screamed across the shifting platforms while the mirror abyss glowed far below. And we already have our first elimination, the commentator roared. Somewhere beneath the arena, a competitor disappeared into the glowing stasis field. Ryuji barely had time to register it. Beside him, Taiga stood grinning like this was the greatest entertainment imaginable. Then 3 fighters rushed him simultaneously. A spear from the left, a sword from the front, an axe from behind. Ryuji calmly stepped inside the spear's reach, striking the attacker and sending the weapon clattering away. The swordsman attacked next. Ryuji shifted aside, caught the attacker's wrist, and knocked the sword from his hand. Then the axe came crashing down. Ryuji simply stepped aside. The attacker stumbled past him. One precise strike to the back of the knee was enough. The fighter lost his balance and fell from the platform, immediately surrounded by golden stasis magic. Eliminated, the commentator shouted. Ryuji stood calmly with his sword lowered. Around him, the crucible continued to descend into chaos, and somewhere in the distance, Taiga's laughter echoed across the battlefield. The longer the Radiant Crucible continued, the more competitors began noticing Ryuji, not because he shouted, not because he showed off, but because every movement was terrifyingly efficient. No wasted motion, no panic, no unnecessary attacks. Who even is that guy? Another competitor watched Ryuji calmly standing among defeated opponents. He hasn't even broken a sweat. A dual-blade fighter suddenly charged. Stay still. Ryuji calmly stepped around the first slash. Too wide. Another missed again. Ryuji's eyes tracked every movement, reading the fighter's attacks before they fully developed. Then a massive grappler charged from behind. Got you. Ryuji shifted his footing. No, you lost your balance. He redirected the larger fighter's momentum and sent him stumbling toward the platform's edge. Then came an ambush. Several competitors charged across unstable glowing tiles. He's trapped. Ryuji noticed the terrain immediately. He leapt backward. The tiles collapsed beneath his attackers, sending them tumbling into the abyss. 3 more eliminations, the commentator shouted. Ryuji landed smoothly. A nearby competitor finally snapped. Why are you so calm? Ryuji paused. Then memories of Ryuki flashed through his mind. Ambushes during meals, surprise attacks during training, attacks while they were trying to sleep, and one particularly ridiculous incident during bath time. Awareness training, defense training, reaction training. Then Ryuki's usual grin. Oh, this one's just funny. Ryuji sighed. I think my standards got ruined. The competitors stared at him in disbelief. Across the battlefield, whispers continued spreading. The calm swordsman, the Dragonite fighter, the warrior who seemed completely unfazed by the Crucible's chaos. And high above the arena, within the solar halo, several Luminarchs had begun watching Ryuji very closely. The Crucible was changing. The chaos of the opening moments was beginning to thin as weaker competitors disappeared one after another into the glowing abyss. High above the arena, the floating screens updated. 83 remaining. 83 warriors remain, the commentator announced. Only minutes had passed. Every elimination made the atmosphere heavier, sharper. The survivors were no longer relying on luck. They were adapting. Ryuji landed lightly on a rotating stone platform, his breathing completely steady. He glanced around at the surrounding chaos. At least these people attack one at a time. Then a spear fighter rushed him. The spear thrust toward his chest. Ryuji smoothly parried it, too unstable. The attacker's momentum carried him forward. Ryuji struck the back of his shoulder with the flat of his blade. The competitor collapsed, but another attacker immediately swung at Ryuji from behind. Without even looking, Ryuji ducked. The blade passed harmlessly overhead. He turned with the movement and swept the attacker's legs from beneath him. The fighter slid across the platform. Straight over the edge. Eliminated, the commentator shouted. The competitor vanished into the glowing stasis field below. Ryuji calmly lowered his blade. Around him, the remaining warriors continued fighting. And high above the arena, more eyes were beginning to follow the calm swordsman, who seemed to move through battle as naturally as breathing. Ryuji exhaled slowly as the crucible continued raging around him. Weapons clashed, competitors fell, the survivor count continued dropping. Then something caught his attention. A disturbance on a nearby platform. A massive competitor stood laughing over several unconscious fighters, towering above everyone around him. Across from him stood a boy who looked completely out of place. Small, messy, green hair, oversized round glasses, trembling hands. Seriously? The brute laughed. They let you into the crucible? The boy flinched. Sorry. Ryuji frowned. The brute raised his enormous weapon. Don't worry, I'll eliminate you quick. Ryuji stepped forward. This is bad. But before he could intervene, the boy vanished. Ryuji's eyes widened. One moment, the nervous competitor was standing there. The next, he was behind the brute. Twin curved sickles rested in his hands. His expression had completely changed. The fear was gone. His eyes were cold and predatory. The brute froze. A thin slash appeared across his armor. He collapsed unconscious. Silence spread across the nearby platforms. The green-haired boy calmly adjusted his glasses. Then his nervous demeanor returned instantly. Sorry. He hurried away while clutching his sickles. A nearby competitor stared after him. What the hell was that? Ryuji remained silent. His eyes followed the boy disappearing across the platforms. What was that? Something about that boy was deeply unsettling. It was almost as if two completely different people were sharing the same body, and somehow the quiet one was the more frightening of the two. The number hanging above the battlefield continued falling. TL remaining. The crucible had changed. The panicked competitors were disappearing. Now the warriors who remained moved with purpose. They watched, calculated, adapted. Ryuji landed lightly on a rotating platform, his crimson and black Haori flowing in the evening wind. Then a yellow blur shot across the battlefield. Ryuji's eyes followed it. Fast. A teenage boy with bright yellow hair darted between fighters like a living lightning bolt. Jagged daggers spun in his hands as he effortlessly avoided attacks. Come on, at least try to hit me. One competitor swung. The boy ducked. Another attacked from behind. He twisted around it with a grin. Then he accelerated. The yellow-haired fighter became almost impossible to follow. 3 competitors suddenly collapsed behind him. Where did he even go? The commentator shouted. Moments later, the boy appeared atop a broken pillar, casually raising one dagger. I'm offended nobody's impressed yet. Ryuji barely reacted. His attention wasn't on the boy's speed dot, it was the bandages covering his right eye. Fake. Deliberate. The boy's visible eye gleamed with mischievous amusement. Ryuji narrowed his eyes. Those bandages. Something about them felt intentional. Secretive. Like they were hiding more than an injury. Across the battlefield, the yellow-haired boy smiled again. Ryuji watched him carefully. What's behind those bandages?
The battlefield roared with violence. Blades clashed. Platforms shifted. Competitors shouted as the radiant crucible consumed the weaker warriors. And yet, amidst the chaos, Ryuji suddenly sensed silence. His gaze shifted toward a distant platform. It had gone unnaturally still. Too still. Several competitors lay unconscious across the stone floor, and standing quietly among them was a lone swordsman. Short black hair framed his emotionless face. Dark purple streaks running through it like fading embers. A katana rested loosely at his side, calm, motionless. But the shadows beneath his feet were moving. Not naturally. Darkness curled across the platform like living smoke. Ryuji narrowed his eyes. What? Another competitor charged toward the swordsman. Move. The mysterious boy didn't flinch. One step, one draw, one impossibly clean slash. The attacker froze, then collapsed unconscious. The shadows beneath him rippled outward. Nearby competitors stared. What was that? Ryuji tightened his grip on his wooden sword. Shadow manipulation. His expression hardened. That shouldn't be possible yet. The first phase prohibited awakened powers. Yet somehow, the darkness itself seemed to obey him. Then the swordsman slowly raised his head. His eyes met Ryuji's across the battlefield. For a moment, everything else disappeared. Cold. Empty. And beneath that emptiness, hatred. Not ordinary anger. Something deeper. Something personal. Neither moved. Then the swordsman looked away and disappeared into the chaos. Ryuji remained still, the nervous green-haired boy with the sickles, the laughing yellow-haired fighter hiding something beneath his bandages. And now, the swordsman surrounded by darkness. 3 strange warriors. 3 different kinds of danger. Ryuji finally understood. He wasn't simply surrounded by competitors. He was surrounded by monsters. And he wasn't the only one. And I'm not the only monster in this arena.